All right, guys. Hey, it's Matt with ManIntentional. And on this show, we talk about men being intentional, making intentional decisions to live an intentional life. This is kind of the new background studio area. Let me kind of just start over, and I'm missing props and everything. Hey, it's Matt. This is ManIntentional. It's been a day. It really has been kind of a crazy day. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to dive into this. We do have a sponsor, and I kind of forgot a prop that, basically a bag of coffee. So Spartan Coffee sponsors us. I guess I could do this real quick. Hang with me. So ManIntentional is brought to you by Spartan Coffee. All right, does that work? So, yeah, I got a Spartan hat. I love the Spartans. I'm glad that Spartan Coffee is sponsoring us. Spartan Coffee, awaken the warrior within. Check them out, spartan-coffee.com. All right, so ManIntentional. I'm getting a lot of questions. What's the deal with ManIntentional? What's it about? This is basically the follow over from Garage Talk TV. Okay. So the past month, basically beginning of the year, started this thing called Garage Talk TV. The concept behind that was we were meeting in my garage, and it was supposed to be myself and another gentleman. And we were going to talk about man stuff, just men stuff. We were going to talk about dealing with men, how we deal with things, dealing with emotions, dealing with pornography, dealing with the sexualization out in the world, dealing with work, our wives, our kids, how we interact, how we do those things. We're going to talk a lot about how to be a man that owns a small business. We were going to talk about all those things. And unfortunately, it ended up being just me, which I'm really okay with. I kind of like it that way. So if that gentleman's listening to this, I'm cool with it, man. But if you do want to hook up and do this, we changed the times. It's going to be Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, like right now, where I got started about 10 minutes late, and it's because I've been running like crazy today, and I got this new space behind me, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. And then we're going to do Friday mornings at 6. We're just going to do like a 15-minute pep talk going into the weekend. We'll probably talk a little bit more about family stuff on Fridays, or just being motivated as we go into weekends. For me, weekends there is no such thing anymore. As a home inspector, I work basically 7 days a week. I mean, that's what today has been. I schedule my schedule. I work for myself, and I work with others, and I have to deal with agents. And no matter what my schedule is, people want to change it. And it gets changed and adjusted because I can't really tell someone they can't make their inspection because something came up in their life. Well, no, I'm not doing your inspection now because then I can't feed my family. So that's kind of the deal with that. And things change today. Things are changing for tomorrow. Things are changing for this weekend. It's just an ongoing craziness in regards to my life. And it's one of the things that bothers the heck out of me about what I do. Other than that, I love what I do. It's just it interferes with my family time. It interferes with my time with my wife. It interferes a lot of times with just my personal time. And as I try and do side hustles or personal things like this right here, I love the fact that this has been put on my heart. It was put on my heart years ago, but it's really percolated over the last couple of years in regards to working with and helping men, but really just talking about what's on my heart and being able to give advice as best I can and help guys find advice in these things. I am a religious guy in the fact that, yes, I call myself a Christian. I follow this book. We're actually going to take stories out of this book. It is the Bible. With that said, I'm not going to push my beliefs down your throat. They just come up. They'll come up in conversation. And I do like using the Bible because there's a lot in there, whether you take it as the word of God and you believe in what it says specifically and wholeheartedly, You may take it just as a textbook. And there's a lot of great stories and analogies that can come out of the Bible that you can take, not having to, believe it in the same way that I do. So we will use it in that capacity from time to time. Like today, we're going to talk about a particular story. So ManIntentional, where does this come from? Again, it comes from Garage Talk TV. I just didn't like the name of it. It didn't sound like what it was really about. We're not talking about tools. We're not talking about garage stuff. So I found kind of a space that I need to finish setting up. You can kind of see behind me. I'm working on this space to be able to kind of have an availability. No kids are here. It's a place where I can come and really dive into working with those that want to listen and be a part of this. And hey, Susan. So, yeah, and ladies, you're welcome to be a part of this. So you're welcome to come in here and hear what we're talking about as far as men. I mean, again, today we're going to talk a little bit about pornography. We're going to finish that up from Garage Talk. That was a subject we were talking about. We're going to kind of finish that up today as we dive into this. But the space behind me, you can see I got this American flag. Quick, cool story in regards to that. That is a flag that flew at, why can't I think of the base name? It's in Reykjavik, Iceland. My brother was stationed there during Desert Storm. So this is a while back. I was just finishing up high school during that time frame. Funny, real funny story. My brother had joined the Navy. He had gotten stationed in Reykjavik. My father and I, my father was a chief. He retired as a chief, did 21 years. He and I were up in Oakland trying to catch a military hop over to Reykjavik to see my brother when they shut the base down because it was troop movement time in regards to what became known as Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm. And so we didn't get to go see my brother. I ended up spending a week in Hawaii. It was awesome. Just hanging out with my dad doing that. That was cool. Dads, do that stuff with your kids. It means a lot. I remember that. And that was, 20, 30 years ago. So it was quite a while ago. Anyway, so my brother, I received one package from him the entire time he was in the military. He was in Spain and Reykjavik, and he was stationed somewhere else. His entire military career, never was stationed in the U.S. that I know of. So, I mean, he was always gone. I got one package, and this flag was in that package. So that's kind of the back history on that flag that's hanging there. It flew at the base, somewhere on the base during that time frame, and he sent it to me. So thanks, bro. If you ever see this, thank you. My brother's still kicking. He's in Fallon, Nevada, playing war games over there. So having a good time, I guess. Anyway, so that's this. With the new space, we're going to kind of build this out. It'll be kind of fun. It's basically a house that I have access to, and it's vacant, and I'll have access to it for a while. So we'll make use of it. We're going to clean it up, do some work on it. It's my dad's house. Well, it's an old house of my dad's. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. I don't even need to go there. Basically, I'm going to be painting and doing some work here at this house, but I'm going to have access to it, and we're going to make it cool and fun. And this is where Tuesdays are going to happen. Fridays, I was talking about that as I got off onto a tangent. Friday mornings is going to be in my garage, 6 a.m., and we're just going to kind of talk about pumping up for the weekend, being motivated there. If you're a member of Order of Man, which I am a member of Order of Man and the Iron Council, I know that kind of is a small conflict. That's why we're going to keep it to like a 10, 15-minute deal on Friday mornings. So I'm going to jump over to the Iron Council meetings, and you can do that as well if you're a member of that as well. We don't have a membership at this point in time. It's just me talking about man stuff and keeping us intentional. So that's kind of what's going on. And my day was just hectic. I was running all over the place and got here a little late. Didn't really get things set up the way I wanted to, but we're running with it. So let's dive into our topic here. We are running a little behind, but we're going to dive into the topic, and we're going to talk a little bit more about pornography and the effects of that. But as we get into that, I just want to remind you guys, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, and we're going to be doing interviews. I've been setting up some interviews. We're going to get some people on here to talk about being men and being intentional in different perspective areas, like with our wives, with our kids, with work, with ourselves, with being a part of a community, being a part of a tribe, if you want to use that word, of other men, and understanding, opening up, and being able to communicate and help each other out. So this is a passion in my heart. As a young man, I always looked for a mentor. I never, ever found a really good mentor. I love my dad to death, but he wasn't the mentoring type. There's a lot of questions that I still have never had answered. As a 45-year-old man now, I have people asking me the questions that I never got answered, and I'm looking for answers to try and answer them. I've got a 20-year-old son who's definitely got questions that I need to be ready to answer. And so I'm reaching out to other men to get answers. So that's part of what this is we're going to scratch each other's back and help each other walk through life as men and be manly and sensitive and loving and protectors and those that go out and work. That's the whole package. We're going to talk about it all continuously going forward, and we'll get into books that I'm reading that I'm going to recommend. We may have like a book of the month type thing. I don't know. We'll figure that out. And eventually we're going to dive into like some in-depth courses, which I'm in the process of working on, but we're months away from that. Just throw that out there. We will do something that's more of a one-on-one or a kind of like just a group type calls occasionally where we're going to get in depth. Those that want to do that, we're going to offer that up at some point. So there's things to grow with this. And so I'm looking forward and excited to seeing how this grows and how men we can grow together. So this point, that's kind of what's coming up. Those are things that are coming forward, and that's a little bit more about me, my story, and I'll talk more about that as we go on. So let's dive in to today's topic. I talked last week on Garage Talk TV, announced that ManIntentional would be coming to life. I was trying to change Garage Talk TV to ManIntentional, but Facebook didn't like that. So I just created a whole new page. We talked a little bit about pornography and how destructive it is, and really the chemical imbalance that it can do to your brain. It is much like a drug, if not worse. It will literally change your makeup in your brain. It's like a dopamine rush that you can't get the first rush ever again, and you look and seek and go after it. It's like crack, but worse. And this is coming from a man who was first introduced to pornography at about the age of 5. I saw my first porn magazine, and the gentlemen that were around me, I remember this vividly. I remember the images. The images have never left my brain in 40 years. I remember exactly what the girls looked like, what was going on in the situations, and all of that. I don't need to get into the details, but I remember it specifically. And I remember the 2 guys that were there, family friends, and still family friends. And they were laughing at the fact that here's the 5-year-old looking at porn. 40 years later, it's still in my head. First girl I ever kissed, ain't got a clue. Girls I dated in elementary school, still don't know their names. First pornography scene I saw, remember it. What's that tell you? What's that say about just the hurt that this stuff can do? Because these are images that are stuck in my head, and then I see my wife, and she's not the same image. She's better in my opinion, but still, I like what Levi Lesko says. Basically, we're pretty for a time, and then we start to decay, and we're on the decay side, I guess. So, I mean, we're not 20 anymore, and 20 looks great. Let's be honest. So it has been a struggle throughout my life. I've had really good patches where it wasn't a part of my life, and some really dark patches where it was my life. The times of being single and times of being married, my first wife. So I have been married prior to my current wife. It was horrible. It was part of our relationship because I brought it into the relationship and it helped kill the relationship because that was more important than my wife. That's the truth. And that's the problem with it, is it takes over who you are. It takes over your life completely. So if you're dealing with something of this case, if you're dealing with pornography, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to get help. You need to reach out. You need to find someone to help you out. And there are a plethora of resources out there. There really are a lot of resources. You can go to xxchurch.com. Great resource. All Pro Dad. Great resource. There's a site called The New Drug. I believe that's what it's called. All about pornography and talking about how pornography is the new drug. Churches. Okay, you don't have to be a believer. You don't have to, say, hey, I'm a Christian, but go to a local church and have that conversation. I know it's a tough one, but it's truly invasive and destructive. And now I'm going to dig deep into this. I'm going to throw out a question to you fathers of daughters. Okay, I'm going to go deep here. So fathers of daughters, I want you to picture your daughter and the fact that she's into this. I'm not saying actually, I'm just, go with me here, okay? So I have a daughter who's 3. And my heart breaks at the fact that to ever think of that she may dive into this world and that other men will be feasting on my daughter, that is heartbreaking. That's as bad as thinking that something happened to my daughter and she passed away. So if this is a struggle for you, that is a good way to get out of that struggle, especially if you have a daughter. You're looking at someone else's daughter. Bottom line, that is someone's little girl. That is someone's little princess. She may not be acting like it right now, but that is still someone's little princess. Some little girl who was 3 dressing up, twirling herself around, hugging her dad, all excited about life. And yet this is the direction that she felt she needed to go. And there's many reasons that this happens. Sexual abuse, runaways, being sold into it. There's a lot of reasons that girls and boys end up in this. And they're sad reasons. But I want you to picture that. Think about that the next time you're tempted to look at something that you really shouldn't be. It'll crush you. It'll crush you to think that. So really, that really just always gets my heart when I think of that. But I do want to talk about a story, and I'm going to use the Bible here. So I said I was going to use this, and you can think of it more historically than you have to from a Christian standpoint. Again, that's where my stance is. But there is a story in Genesis about 2 young men, Esau and Jacob. And so Esau and Jacob, when they were born, Esau was born first. Jacob was born second. He was grabbing a hold of the heel of Esau as Esau was being pulled out. Here came Jacob. Blunk. So Esau was very hairy, and that's kind of where the name Esau comes from. And Jacob was the trickster, the heel grabber. That's where that name comes from. Yes, my oldest son, who is named Jacob. Think of that. So my oldest son, his name is Jacob. But so as they grew and got older, of course, Esau back in that time frame, he would get a bigger portion of the inheritance when that came about. He also would get the blessing. And so basically his family was the lineage where Jesus would come from. And so they were going to be blessed to continue on the story of God. This is coming in from the biblical standpoint. So that was going to be Esau's deal. And this is where I attribute pornography or something of that nature with this story. So Esau was the hairy man of the two. Okay, Jacob was I'm going to hang out with mama and I'm going to learn to cook and I'm going to do some knitting kind of guy. He was a little more timid, wasn't as manly as Esau. So Esau one day was out hunting, and different time frame. There weren't guns. I mean, he was hunting with more or less his hands and some rocks that he could throw, probably a slingshot back then, and a spear of something of that nature. They don't really have bow and arrow type stuff at that point in time. So hunting was definitely different. So he went hunting, and he came back from his hunting experience and was famished. At least he felt famished. And as he came in the house, Jacob had been cooking and had whipped up a stew. And not just any stew, but a stew. So think of this like you get done working in the yard, or maybe you get done from a hunting trip and you get home and you're like, the salt rock is behind your ear and you're salty and sweaty and nasty and you just want a good piece of meat or something to eat. You're hungry, you're famished, and you're not hitting up McDonald's on the way. No McDonald's back then. So Esau comes in and he's like, dude, hook me up with some of that soup. What does Jacob say? He's like, sure, brother. Give me your birthright, though, for it. Esau, in his famine, so he was too lazy to get it himself, said, sure. Basically, dude, you can have my birthright. Give me the soup. Downs the soup. Gave up his birthright. Next morning, woke up. Tummy had been full, but guess what? He woke up hungry again, needing something to eat, and he gave up his birthright to Jacob. Now the story goes on. Jacob does end up getting the birthright and getting the blessing from his father. There's a little trickery that goes into that. He actually had to disappear because his brother was going to kill him. So bigger story, but here's the key point of this part of the story in this right here. This is what we do as men when we decide to dive into the pornography, or we linger at those pictures on Instagram or Facebook or TV, or we watch a show that we know has something in it that we shouldn't be looking at. We're giving up something. We're giving up our birthright for a short time gratification of something that we really don't have to have at the moment. That's what we're doing. Guys, I'm going to just hear me out here. And this is something that I will stand on for forever for my life. This stuff is super destructive and it will kill you. I dealt with it. I've fought with it. I've had to deal with the look in the face of someone. Here's a story. So my current wife, who I love to death, she is awesome. Cindy, when we were dating, there was an evening where I got an email, one of those emails, and I kind of clicked on it, and then I clicked around a little bit, and I clicked a little bit more and clicked a little bit more. And here's the great part is I was chatting with Cindy at the time as I'm clicking around through Yahoo chat, if you remember that. So the next day, she's over to my place. We're getting ready to go. I think go somewhere. I don't remember what we're doing specifically, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to take a quick shower. So she hops on my computer, and good for her, but she checks my history and sees what I had been looking at. And so this was very hurtful for her. And we had a long conversation. I lied at first. I lied about how did I get there? How did I get there? So much so that she was taking the computer to have it looked at by a family member who that's what he does. He basically does IT, and they had a conversation about it. And he basically said, look, there's a slim chance that Matt isn't lying and that this was some kind of virus type thing. But let's be honest. So she came back to me and we had a long conversation about this. It almost ruined our relationship. And it was painful for me to be honest with her about what I had been doing at that moment in time. It was painful for her to deal with that. Hey, Jason, what's up? I see you there. Um, and we dealt with that. We did. We had a conversation. It almost ended our relationship. She gave me another shot, and I told her, "Look, it's my system is yours. You can look at the history whenever you want." And at the time, there were some programs out there, and I tried to find someone that would watch my history for me. And it was surprising at how many men, even men in the church and church leaders at the time, were like, "I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want to know what you're doing." And that's sad. And my heart broke in that regard because I really wanted to help at the time. But that's really the destructive force of what looking at this stuff can do. It really can end a relationship. It can end a relationship with your kids. Imagine looking at this stuff when your daughter walks in on you. It's going to happen. You can't hide it forever. Imagine what's going to happen when your son walks in as you're looking at this stuff. How do you explain that one to him? Is the whole time you're telling him not to do it, and yet there you're doing it. Imagine what happens when your wife walks in and that's what you're doing. That's a great conversation to have, huh? Men of intention. We need to make the intentional decision to not do this, to get help if it's part of your life. And it will never go away. It'll rear its ugly head when you're not thinking about it, when you're not being intentional. And I'll tell you, this past week, there have been temptations for me. I've been really super busy. My wife's been busy. The family's been busy. And I've been busy. And there have been times where I'm at my computer late at night. Everybody's asleep. And don't think that, it doesn't come up where it's like, "Hey, dude, just take a look like, oh, so-and-so, some girl or whatever." It pops up on Yahoo that blah, blah, blah. I can't think of anybody specific, but maybe it's the Kardashians for you or something like that. And it's like, well, let's just check them out in bathing suits. And let's do this. And that little bit grows into, next thing you know, you've dove back in the pool. I talked about this last week. For the longest time, I didn't stay home alone. My wife would leave for my sake to give me some alone time at home. And as soon as she left, I grabbed my computer. Bam, I was at Starbucks because I knew I couldn't be home alone. The temptation was huge. If you're tempted, if this is a problem and you're struggling with this, get away from being alone, get away from the temptation, and seek help. Guys, I've mentioned Triple X Church. I've mentioned All Pro Dad, the new drug.com, I'm pretty sure is the website. I'll link some stuff up down below. But this is an epidemic. It's something that we will talk about going forward. And as we start blocking out months to talk about specific things, this month, this kind of dripped into this month from Garage Talk. We're going to spend the rest of the month talking about another subject. I've got 2 or 3 in mind. And I will drop that before Friday because we'll get into it Friday. But we're going to talk about certain subjects, but we'll come back to this. And this is going to be something that I will occasionally bring up, and I'm going to spit it out there and be like, guys, stop. Get away from it. Stop smacking the mic. Stop using this thing. Stop making this a priority in regards to looking at those things. Check your Instagram. Delete the people that are posting the stuff you don't need to see. Get away from it. Like and follow the people that are posting stuff that makes sense, that keeps you away from that. Bottom line. Facebook, clean it up. You got to clean up the stuff in your life so it's not a part of it. So I just finished this book called Swipe Right by Levi Lesko. Highly recommend it. It's a really good book on sex in general and relationships in general. But he talks about in one chapter how your eyes, what's the saying go? Your eyes are the highway to your soul. There's truth to this. What these see, this holds on to. What you put in there is going to be here. And then when you go to get with your wife, what's here is going to be what you want. And it's not always that way. We start to decay. I'm 45. My wife's not 40 yet. She might watch this. She's beautiful as can be, but there's truth. She's not 20 either. I'm not 20. It happens. Life happens. We start to decay. We're not always as hot, but we can work on it. So there you go, guys. That's it. I wanted to kind of wrap up the stuff we started with last week in regards to pornography. I want to talk a little bit more about it today and just really push. You need to walk away from this. You need to get away from it. There is help out there. Reach out to me, manintentional@gmail.com. Manintentional@gmail.com. Hit DM me. Hit me up here. I will talk to you about this. I will help you in any way I possibly can because I know how destructive this particular problem can be. And don't think that it's not a problem for the entire manhood of the world. We all deal with it. It's 100%. I know there's statistics that say 87% of people look at this. 100% of men deal with this issue. I don't care. That's the truth. We need to fight it. We need to combat it. And it takes each one of us doing it and scratching each other's back and being there for each other. So guys, there you have it. That is episode 1 of ManIntentional. And again, we're going to continue to talk about men-related stuff. We're going to continue to dive into finances. We're going to dive into relationships. We're going to dive into kids, work. We're going to talk with entrepreneurs and what they got going on. There's a gentleman watching right now, Jason. I'm going to try and drag him onto this show. And he's a woodworker. He makes cabinets. We're going to talk about what he's got going on with that. That might spark your interest. That might be something that you want to dive into or have questions about. But we're going to talk about how he's doing that for himself as an entrepreneur. I'm going to get Owen Video on here. I just put that out there. Owen's going to talk about what he's doing and how he's helping small businesses do video and grow. I'm going to try and get Sean Cannell on here. Just an awesome gentleman who's helping people do live video as well as YouTube. And we might drag in some other people and some ladies to talk about, what ladies are dealing with when it comes to men. So these are things that I'm looking at trying to pull in here. We're going to try and get interviews throughout the year and talk about stuff. And if there's a subject you want to talk about, hit me up. Let me know. We'll bring it to life. We'll make it happen. We're going to do monthly topics. We're going to talk specifically about those topics throughout the month. And we'll see where this goes. Thank you, everyone, for catching this. Apparently, there's 2 people that have jumped on. Currently, no one. But that's cool. I'm down with it. Love you all. Love the men of intention. Oh, and don't forget to check out men of intention. ManIntentional on. You would think I know what I'm doing. ManIntentional on Instagram. I'm doing a 20 push-up challenge. We're doing 20 push-ups every morning, doing a challenge, and we were going to continue to do challenges throughout the year. May not be every month, maybe every other month. And trust me, the burpee challenge is coming. We'll be doing some burpees in the morning. All right, guys, that's it for this episode of ManIntentional. Thank you guys for checking it out. Stay intentional, make intentional decisions, and have an intentional life. Don't forget to don't forget to give me a shout out on manintentional@gmail if you got questions, or just DM me right here on Facebook or on Insta. Great with that. Also check out Spartan Coffee at spartan-coffee.com. They are a sponsor for us. And if you put in the code ManIntentional at checkout, get 50% off your first coffee purchase. Thanks, everyone. I will see you Friday at 6 a.m. Pacific time, and then Tuesday, Friday, and so on. I'm Matt. This is ManIntentional. Talk to you later.